This pretty wildflower grows in sunny areas in northern Illinois. It is called butterfly weed, and it is a common native plant. It gets its name because it attracts in butterflies, but also other insects as well. The reason being is look at that color and look at the landing pad. It's perfect for big insects to come land on and drink the copious amounts of nectar that this plant produces. The nectar is produced in the small little flowers, and if you look closely, you can see them. Those are called florets. And after each floret is pollinated, it'll form a seed pod, and then more than likely in the wintertime, the seeds will drift away. One of the butterflies that is attracted to this plant is the monarch because it is in the milkweed family. It does not contain the milky sap that other milkweed plants have, but it still contains a sap that has high amount of alkaloids in it, which protects the plant from other insects and keeps them from eating it. Slugs are constantly covered in slime, even on the underside of their body. They create it by goblet cells, which are located on the skin. The goblet cells create a protein called mucin, which expands into something called mucus, and the mucus is 97% water, but it's not a liquid. It's actually a liquid crystal. So what's the purpose of it? By coating yourself with it, you don't dry out. By moving on it, you don't cut yourself on sand, rocks, and sticks. By descending down the side of a plant stem or a tree, you can use it as kind of a rappel rope. If you need to communicate with other slugs, just add some pheromones to it. And if you're about to be plucked off the side of a plant by a bird or another animal, you can release a bunch of it, which will allow yourself to be glued to the plant so you don't get eaten. I'm sure you or someone you know has called this animal a giant mosquito in the past. It is actually called a crane fly. It is related to a mosquito because they are all in the fly grouping because of their two wings. It does not bite, and it has a very primitive mouth part. When it was a larva, it did feed more so on decomposing plants and probably dead animals as well, as it moved mainly in the soil. Very wet soil is what it prefers. If you look right behind the front wing, you'll see a little black ball on a pedestal. That is called a haltere, and they have two of those, and those help them when they're flying to keep from turning upside down. They kind of act like a gyroscope for stabilization in flight. This is the flower of the white water lily. It's a very common aquatic plant. You can see the lily pads that go with it, providing shade and cover for aquatic animals. The flower is only like that for a few days, and once it's pollinated, it'll get pulled down under the water and the seeds will produce. The seeds then are moved by birds, mainly waterfowl and mammals, and they drift around in the current as well. Extending down from the lily pad to the rhizome is a stalk, and that carries gases, mainly oxygen. The rhizomes, which are in the mud, occasionally break off and float around, and those can resprout as well. So those are two ways that this plant can move across a pond or a lake and propagate itself. Take a close look at the skin of the American toad. The bumps on the skin are not warts. You will not get warts from handling a toad. Those are glands, and there are two kinds. One are mucus glands to keep the animal moist and to aid in swimming. The second type of gland are called granular glands, and what they do is they secrete a toxin to protect the animal. When a bunch of those glands are pushed together on the skin, they're called a megagland, and there are two of them. They're kidney-shaped right behind the eyes. When the animal is threatened, not only will it puff itself up to make itself look bigger, but it will point those glands to the face or the mouth of the potential predator. They release a toxin, and it tastes real bad to a predator. And there's an old saying that if you swallow a live toad first thing in the morning, nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. I'm sure you've seen this before, but have you ever wondered what made it? The answer are leaf miners. Leaf miners is a generic term for many different types of insects, including moths, flies, sawflies, that after hatching from the egg, they burrow into the leaf, get right in the middle of it, and tunnel their way through or mine their way through as they eat it. You can see, if you follow one of the lines closely, that it'll enlarge, which simply shows that the insect is growing as it mines its way through. Now, if you look closely on some of these, you'll see a brown line right down the middle of the tunnel, and that is just simply frass, or excrement from the insect as he eats his way through the leaf. Back on July 8th, we ran the first installment of Mark's Nature Walks, and in that was a beautiful caterpillar which turned into a white-marked tussock moth. She was chewing on the flower petals of a daisy. She spun her cocoon, and then when she emerged as an adult moth, it was a female. And the way I knew that is because she immediately started to lay eggs in a frothy mass right on top of the cocoon, protected by her own hairs when she was a larva. The hairs can be irritating to the skin. Well, about 10 days after that, what emerged are tiny larvae that you can see wiggling about. Those are the small caterpillars. They will send out their own strand of silk, be carried away by the wind, and land on something else to eat. You can see the small little exit holes from where they emerge from the frothy egg case.